First of all, I really want to say that I am extremely happy to be here today. I have a long history of working with Rumi Forum and presenting in different events. And today I'm really pleased that there is a full house, everyone, a lot of interested people to come today. And how we will work, we'll give opportunity for our three speakers to speak for 10 minutes each, which will give us opportunity for 30 minutes for question and answers and more engagement with the group. Just to give you very quick information, I will start with myself. I'm professor at George Mason University School for Conflict Analysis and Resolution. I'm social psychologist in my background, but I work with ethnic, religious, national and other conflicts around the globe. And I do a lot of research in different countries. I did research in Turkey also. And I'm really, really pleased again to be here today. So our first speaker today will be, we're starting with you, right? Yeha Hwang. She received her Master of Divinity degree from Princeton Theological Seminary. And she was serving in a number of different churches as an English minister, as a preacher, and the most important, which is very interesting, that she also was served as a vice moderator and a moderator at the National Capital Presbytery. So she's really involved in a lot of activities in interfaith dialogue. Our second speaker will be Sahar Khamis, right?
That's very good.
She is, first of all, she's expert in Arab and Muslim media, and she was the head of the Mass Communication and Information Science Department in Qatar University. And she is a faculty associate professor at University of Manchester, United Kingdom. She is
Manchester is my PhD.
Okay. So, yeah. And she is author of 2 books, a lot of articles. She received a lot of awards, academic awards, and she is also communicator and media analyst. She presented her opinion pieces in many media pieces. And finally, our last but not least speaker, Deborah Reichmann. Right?
Close enough.
Okay. She serves in Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, and where she helps people to officiate their life cycle events. She has her bachelor degree, her law degree, and her master degree from Georgetown University. There she also worked and helped to organize a lot of interfaith events for 7 years. And she received her Master of Public Health from Johns Hopkins University. And she is now actively involved in a lot of interfaith programs helping people to understand interreligious tolerance. So let's start with Yeha.
Thank you. I am very honored to be here among such fine colleagues, and thank you so much for extending the invitation to me. I am a Christian pastor, and I am serving currently as associate pastor of Fairfax Presbyterian Church, which is a local Presbyterian church down the street from Main Street. So my understanding of my role as a peacemaker is deeply rooted in my faith in God as a Christian, and especially as expressed in the person of Jesus Christ. I follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, a Jewish rabbi who challenged the established institution of religion in his time, in his particular context. He revolutionized the concept of hospitality and enlarged the circle, if you will, to let others in the established circle of his time and let others become part of that circle when during his time when that was not allowed. So that kind of gives you a background of where I'm coming from and why I was asked to speak from Christian perspective. So Hopefully that will give you some background information. So because I'm a follower of Christ, and I believe that Jesus' ministry, his life, his work, his teachings, serve as a model for us, for me to follow in my given context here in the United States, living in 2016. It's important to me to note that Jesus welcomed strangers, what the people of his time considered the outsiders, and those who were considered less than, because of their status in the social context in his society as tax collector or as a woman and as children, as widows, as ones having physically different able bodies, what his society collectively labeled as sinners or unclean people. Jesus, in my opinion, did not buy into those superficial categories that people made up and dividing people by their superficial differences and treating them unjustly, using those as reasons for that. So, of course, there are many teachings and stories of Jesus, but I want to highlight just one concept or practice, if you will, that is at the heart of what I believe is the key to the path of making peace. And for me, that is the concept of table fellowship. Throughout the New Testament, we encounter Jesus eating with people, sharing table fellowship. He eats with people of various backgrounds, ill repute, again, tax collectors, sinners, friends and strangers alike. He welcomed all people to the table of various occasions, and he got himself in trouble for that many times. Now Jesus, being a faithful Jew, celebrated the Passover ritual, a ritual that commemorates God's saving grace in Egypt when the spirit of death passed over the Hebrew people's homes, keeping their firstborn sons safe and beginning the Exodus journey out of Egypt, out of slavery. Now, when Jesus met for the said Passover meal with his followers and his friends for the one last time before the crucifixion, he went beyond just celebrating the traditional Passover meal. He expanded the meaning of Passover and transformed it for his followers. We Christians now call this ritual either the Lord's Supper or communion or Eucharist, depending on. Now, this Passover ritual or the Lord's Supper, communion, is first and foremost a dinner table. It was a meal, shared meal. A table where our physical hunger is satisfied. A table where we connect with each other, not as one race or religion over another, but as one human race, admitting our need for food and our need to connect with one another. This represents for me a path to peacemaking, making connections with each other over against our differences, whether that difference is religious, political, or otherwise. We as human beings, we all share this need to fill our stomachs. We started this gathering with such fellowship. Even though we didn't have a table, that was table fellowship. Now, this table fellowship can take place anywhere, obviously. It begins at home, though, for me. And with our families and friends, we learn to share daily gratitudes with one another as we share our meals together. It's as simple as, how was your day? What happened today at school or at work? What challenge did you face today? What difficulties or what success did you experience today? How did you feel? How about the test that you took? How did that go? How did your rehearsal go? Or that presentation you had to give at work? And then sometimes it gets a little bit more heavier. Did you see that on the news? The latest shooting, the latest violence, or the latest tragedy? What do you think about this and how do you feel about that? Then it extends beyond just your family and friends to include others. Others that would normally be invited to your table. I have to tell you that I hesitated to use this image of table fellowship as a path to peacemaking today because this could sound very much like gender stereotyping. We as women have known to be the keeper of kitchen and provide meals, and that's not where I am going. And we as women are normally known as the nurturer, the ones who nourishes people, and we are natural at relationship making and keeping. And I didn't want to buy into or just sell that very stereotype, typical image of women. But at the same time, that is what was taught to me as a Korean American woman. And that is what I value in my upbringing as a Korean American woman and also as a Christian pastor. I'm not suggesting that investing time and energy is just for women, but it does come more naturally to us women. Investing time and energy to provide such space, whether it's in your kitchen with the food you prepared or food that you bought at Safeway, it is that time, creating that space, the intention of building relationship around the table, that is what I want to stress. That is a pathway to peace. This is not just women's work, it is our work. In addition to my faith, I shared with you that my cultural identity and ethnic heritage is in the culture of Korea. I am Korean American, and because I was born in South Korea and moved to the States in my pre-teens, that has a big influence on my life. And my parents owned a restaurant when they lived in Korea, and our condo was right above the restaurant. And I had a lot of insights, and I had opportunities to see people eating constantly. There were co-workers bonding over stew, over their lunch break, and there were families, comforting one another over loss of a loved one, over bowls of hot soup, and of course, friends celebrating milestones in life over bulgogi and beer. And that's what I learned. Food brings people together, and food allows people to become vulnerable and to share their personal stories. And in sharing of those personal stories, people try to understand and connect each other more deeply. So when we extend our invitation to include those who are outside, I think that's where vulnerability can happen and shared stories can come, and that's where we can truly start getting to one another and understand one another so we can talk about difficult issues that we do not always see eye to eye on. So because I've been given a time limit, I'm going to stop here, and if you have questions, you could hold off and ask me later. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum. Salam, shalom. Peace be upon you. I'm delighted to be here with you this evening and so happy to see a full house on Thursday afternoon. You guys must be really invested and interested in this topic.
That's right. And rainy.
And on a rainy day and like Thursday, thank you so much for coming. When I was invited to take part in this panel, I was really very interested in the topic itself, women's leadership in peacemaking and peace building, because it's very dear and near to my heart. I came here to this country 9 years ago. Like when I say 9 years ago, like really 9 years already, it seems like yesterday. And I've been teaching since then at the University of Maryland, College Park. In my area is Arab and Muslim media, as you mentioned in the introduction. And I immediately got myself involved in many interfaith movements. I found myself very interested in finding out more about my neighbors, about the wider community, not just about fellow Muslims, but also about people of different faith and different communities. And I think my interest in this grew out of my experience coming to the US for the very first time as a 15-year-old high school student back in 1981. My parents had the guts to send me to Ohio for a whole year to live with an American host family. And my high school was all, I think, middle class, white, Caucasian Americans. I was like the only person coming from overseas. Like everywhere I go, like people look at me and like, okay, this is our, exchange student from Egypt. But I really, really loved the experience and learned so much from it. And it was an eye-opening experience for me that got me interested in finding out more about people of different cultures, different backgrounds, different religions. And that's where my interest in reaching out to others and finding out more about my neighbors and connecting to my community, I think started at this very early age. And I give a lot of credit always to my brave parents for their open-mindedness, sending a 15-year-old girl on her own to the US for a whole year. I mean, think about it. They had a lot of guts and a lot of confidence in me to do so. And I always feel grateful for both of them for that opportunity. But then my interest also grew. It grew in finding out more about other people as I started to read more and lived in many countries and really toured many parts of the world. I'm really happy to be a global citizen and someone who is a citizen of the world, so to speak. Lived in England for 4.5 years, got my PhD from University of Manchester, lived in Qatar, in the Gulf, traveled to many parts of the world. And I started to really feel much more interested and invested in finding out about others. There is also a personal side to the story that I will have the guts to open up and to share with you, which is when I got my second son. I have two sons. My younger one has autism, he has special needs. And I immediately felt like this is a unifying experience. It is not just restricted or confined to a Muslim mother or a Jewish mother or a black mother or an Asian mother. Everybody can have this kind of experience, having a special needs child. It's a very enriching, very challenging, sometimes painful, but definitely it's an experience that makes you grow in so many ways and learn so much about the world, about yourself, about your child, about nature, about others, and it unifies people. So I started to meet, Christian mothers, Jewish mothers, mothers of different faith, who we sit together, we don't talk about our differences, we talk about our children. Did you find out about this resource? How about this school? Did you know about this program? How can you help, get our children involved in this? How can we make sure our children are treated with dignity and respect, and everywhere they go, they're not seen as they need to be excluded or pushed out? And it's a challenge. It's an everyday, ongoing challenge, but it brings people together. What I'm trying to get at here is sometimes you have a lot of challenges that really bring the best out of you. And what grew out of this was my interest in interfaith work. I said to myself, if we have so much in common, and sometimes human suffering and human experience can bridge the differences and the gaps between people, why couldn't we join hands and bring peace to this world and get out of our personal pain and our personal suffering something much more meaningful, much more fruitful, much more useful, not just for our own kids, which is the micro image, but the macro image of engaging in Takun Alam, Islah, right? Bringing together the best in the world, not just for yourself or your immediate family, but to the whole community, to the whole society, and to the whole universe, the whole world, so to speak, right? So I will talk about 3 specific points: why women, and why interfaith work, and why peace building, and how can we go about trying to make the best out of this very important triangle of women's leadership in interfaith work and peace building. My friend here, you already mentioned some important points about women and women's abilities and their own unique talents and skills. In this regard, I will just add to what you already mentioned, that women are also bridge builders, and they know how to connect the dots. They know how to connect people together, connect families together, connect communities together. They're very talented in this. They also have a very good eye for details. If you don't believe me, ask a man to tell you a story or something that happened in a soap opera, and ask a woman to tell you the same story. And you'll see the stark difference in terms of the amount of details you're going to get out of each one of them. Right? The man will be like, okay, he got married. And I'd be like, yeah, I want to know more. They got married, I just told you. And the woman would be like, she was wearing a blue dress, sitting on the left side. He proposed to her, she started to tear up, and she shook her head, started to smile, and she'll give you so many details. Details are very important. Details are very important, because if you lose details, you lose a lot of your learning experience in this world. You miss out on a lot of stuff if you don't have a good eye for details, and even a good heart and a good mind for details. And that's another very good advantage for women. Women also being nurturers, like you mentioned, they nurture not only their own immediate family or their next of kin or their children, they can also be leaders in their own communities. Women need to be given the opportunity. We talk about women's empowerment, and women's empowerment as a concept cannot be brought about except with women's own hands. I do not believe in the idea of women waiting for some kind of leader to come down from somewhere and just give them the power on a silver plate. I always say, if you want women's empowerment, work for women's empowerment. You believe that women should have power, make it happen. Go out there, do something positive, start a fund or a scholarship to empower young women, to give them better education, to open new schools, to open new NGOs, new organizations. Go out and make it happen. Don't wait for some kind of miracle to happen suddenly, or some leader to come out of somewhere and just empower women. Women have to do it on their own. They have to work, they have to join hands, they must have solidarity. And as we say always, if you teach a man, you teach a person, but if you teach a woman, you teach a nation. And that's because she is not only teaching her own family, but she has the power and the ability to spread her wings way, way beyond her immediate family and really nurture the whole community. And women are very strong. We are very, very, very strong. Sometimes what is disguised, like our strength is disguised behind this appearance of sometimes vulnerability or tears in our eyes, but I say this is just a sign of our strength, because we internalize so much inside our hearts, inside our mind, and then we glow. Suddenly you are glowing with energy and power and love, and you are giving to everyone around you, and that shows that you are very strong. So always believe in yourself. So that's my first point about women and why women are so important and central to this kind of work. My second point about why interfaith work. Interfaith work is extremely important because we have so much more in common than we think we do. And unfortunately, sometimes we look at the media and it's all doom and gloom. There's this principle in media that says when it bleeds, it leads. So whenever there's conflict and bloodshed and violence and crime, the cameras are rolling and you have it all over the media. Whenever you have a nice, group of people like the people we have here this evening, sitting together and talking about women building peace or interfaith dialogue, there is not much interest in the media. And I think this needs to change. We need to have something which is called alternative narrative, the counter narrative, alternative voices. That is something I'm extremely passionate about, and I don't think the mainstream media is going to do it, but I think interfaith communities, grassroots movements, NGOs, people who are working in the field of social media and new media, educators, if we put our brains together and brainstorm and think about how to do it, we can invest in this kind of project and bring about alternative voices. Tell people that there are good people out there in the world of different backgrounds, colors, faith, religions, you name it, who are doing something good now. I always believe that these people do exist. There are always good people doing something good somewhere. It is just we don't see them on TV. We don't hear about them in the radio. We don't read about them in the paper. And that's a shame. That has to change. So I know a lot of interfaith activists in this area, in the DMV area, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, who are doing great work for their own communities and for other communities as well. We had many My God, 1 minute. Okay, I really have to wrap up quickly. Okay, I cannot go on to tell you all my stories, right? I have to wrap up quickly. That's another thing about women, right? We want to give you all the details, remember? So there's so many interfaith groups in this area working for the common good. How can we bring these people together, join hands, and amplify the voices of goodwill, amplify the voices of interfaith work? I'm a member of different groups in this area, JITS, Jewish Islamic Dialogue Society, Sisterhood of Salam Shalom, which has an excellent chapter in every state all over the country, which is amazing. Greater Washington Muslim Jewish Forum, and I also have a lot of interfaith work with different churches and different synagogues, and I go to give talks there all the time. And I feel this is important for the last point, which is peace building. And there has never been a time when peace building effort is more needed than now. Just look at what is going on, look at the rhetoric in the media, the rhetoric by some of the presidential candidates, the horrifying degree of hate speech, especially Islamophobia, and it's very scary. It is extremely scary. And I'm not scared at people who make this kind of discourse happen. I'm scared at people who clap for them and cheer them up and encourage them and are willing to vote for them. I find this to be the most scary part. And if we were to make a difference, we have to really join hands together in solidarity, men and women, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, Hindu, you name it, across the board, and say we don't accept and we don't tolerate this kind of hate speech, period. I saw this analogy which I really love that I want to share with you in 1 second, which is the grandparents can be fear and ignorance. You have grandparents called fear and ignorance. They give birth to children called hatred and discrimination. And these children give birth to grandchildren who are called Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, racism, sexism, homophobia, you name it, and the list can go on and on and on, right? So you want to change these into the grandparents being love and compassion, giving birth to children, harmony and tolerance, and they give birth to other children, community work, community engagement, peace building, and changing the world to make it a better place. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Thank you all for having us all. And I have 2 very tough acts to follow, so I'm not sure if I should thank you or run screaming. I won't run screaming. I'll do what I can. So I'm so honored to be here and so pleased to be representing the Jewish, it's never the when it comes to Jewish, a Jewish perspective on women and peace building and social harmony. And it was hard for me to narrow this down, to try to figure out what I was going to say this evening. I myself, I'm a Jewish woman, and I was thinking about, I classified my life how I could paint it. Let's see, I work from home, so I get to drive my children to school, and I pick them up, and I take them to their after-school activities, and I cook dinner. Mom. But I did say I work from home. I'm an executive director of a nonprofit. I'm a rabbi. I'm told very recently, those were male jobs, right? But I do that too, and I do it well. So even in my daily life, there's a dichotomy, there's a confluence of different roles and expectations. And so I thought about where did my faith lead me to be where I am today? Now, in Judaism, when we were posed with a question, and as a former lawyer, actually this is true for lawyers as well, you look at the words. You dissect the sentence, what is going on? So, contribution, women of faith, peace building, and social harmony. Not in that order. Women of faith. Is I going to talk about myself? I am one. Mostly everyone is. Well, women or men. So, no, let me think about the women of faith in the Bible, in our oldest books. Contribution. Are they contributing to peace today? Well, yes, they are. I'll get to that. But how did they contribute in their time, and then how have those lessons evolved? And peace building and social harmony. It's the same thing. If you have one, you'll have the other. They go together, and if you lose track of one of them, you'll lose both. So I'm going to try to synthesize briefly some ancient tradition and modern sensibilities. I had a lot of women to choose from. I didn't think I did. Again, when I thought about it, I said the Bible is male-dominated, the stories are about men, there are women there, but they're usually sort of ancillary figures. Not always, not all of them. And actually I had more to choose from than I thought. So I still had to think about who I was going to speak of. The first one that came to mind, Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, is on Monday. And one of the readings we have that day is about Hannah. She was the mother of Samuel, one of our prophets, and her story features prominently in that day. So I've been thinking about her anyway, so I'm going to share her story. She was one of 2 wives of Elkanah, of a pious man. Her other wife, Penina, gave her husband many children, but Hannah was barren, and that was destroying her. They all went together to Shiloh, one of the shrines for sacrifice, and she went off by herself and prayed to God, prayed fervently and vehemently and wept to herself, facing a wall. And the high priest, Eli, he saw her, and he's like, she must be drunk. This is a tragedy, this is horrible. But as he approached, he listened to what she had to say. She said, oh, she's prayed. And he said, go home. It's okay. God will take care of you. And she said, do you want to, what were you praying for? She said, I was praying for a son, and I promise I'm going to give that son right back to you, right back to God. I don't want the son for me. I want the son for my family, for my husband. It was part of social. She was not living up to her requirements, and she wanted to do that. She had the son, Samuel, and she did as promised, gave him to the service of God. There's a few things about this story that I find really worthwhile to think about. First of all, we could have easily heard that she was jealous of the other wife, the one who was having babies. But never once. She wasn't a rival. She loved her. She loved her other children. That wasn't her problem. She knew that her problem was with herself and her society, and she was asking God not to do something against anyone, to help her. She only weeps to God. She doesn't complain to her husband. She doesn't complain to the other wife, to other people. She only told the high priest because he asked her. She was venting and weeping to God. So what we take from this, actually, she ends up being the model of modern prayer, of Jewish prayer. Once sacrifice at the temple was no longer an option, the rabbis were, well, how do we do this? Avodah, which is work, and sacrifice is a pillar of Jewish faith and religion. And they said, we'll take the model of Hannah. She prayed, she wept, she gave of herself a sacrifice. She did not ask for herself. She asked a boon for her family, for the greater community, and she gave it right back. For what she asked for, she was going to give right back. It was not a personal request, it was a communal request, and that is very much the nature of Jewish prayer. We don't ask for personal help, we ask for community well-being. So that's Hannah. Then, to have another, there are many women. The next one I thought of, maybe I was just on a holiday mood, I thought of Esther, which is the story, the book of Esther, which we read during Purim, comes later on this spring. And this one, it's set in the 4th century BCE in Persia, and the king of the Persians, Ahasuerus, was one of his wives, his top wife, fell out of favor, and so he had a beauty pageant to replace her. And a Jewish woman, Hadassah, was urged to enter the pageant, changed her name to Esther. She won, she became the new queen. And around the same time, they appointed a new prime minister who was somewhat megalomaniac and self-centered and insisted that everyone should bow before him. Except the Jews wouldn't, specifically one, Mordecai, who was Esther's cousin. He said, I'm not bowing. And the Prime Minister Haman's like, well, then you, and just to be on the safe side, all your people will die because you didn't do this. Esther, faced with an existential dilemma and no power, because she's just a wife, let's face it, queen, but just a girl. She did what she could. She invited the king and the prime minister to a meal. And she spoke. And she told stories. And from an oblique point of view, painted what was going on. Well, neither of them knew whether she was talking about them and the situation. And at the end, the king found himself agreeing with her, like, oh no, we could not possibly have this horrible tragedy. And she said, well, you're about to do it. This is real. And she reveals that, and the king says, oh, then absolutely you're right, we can't go forward. Haman, actually he loses his life, Mordecai gets put in as prime minister, the story goes on. I'm really focusing on her. A couple of big lessons from this one. The first is it's often held up as the fact that you don't need to suppress your own identity. Yes, she did hide that she was Jewish, but not that she was a woman, and not that she cared about Jews. So she didn't hide that to achieve success. And secondly, having a woman protagonist in an ancient story, that's very rare. Women had no power, no voice, no authority whatsoever. And yet, through wit and talent and perseverance, she succeeded. And the last thing that we've taken from it, and that the rabbis often teach, is she did it with rhetoric. Because women, we can talk. Not all of us. Some of us. 1 minute, guy. So
We can talk.
we can talk. She argued her way out of that. So the last thing I'm going to talk about in a minute, there's the end of chapter 31 of the book of Proverbs is read every Friday, every Shabbat in a Jewish home. It's called Eshet Chai, Woman of Valor. And it's a paean, how do you say it? It extols women's virtues. She's deserving of her husband's confidence. She's industrious. She's successful in business. She's strong and versatile and constant in her religious faith. Now, this story, these verses, they're part of a bigger thing. Directly preceding it is advice to a young man not to spurn bad behavior, to not drink too much, to stand up for the rights of the needy and champion justice. And it's assumed that he learns this from his mother. She's the one who has taught him. And she's not only this housefrau, this amazing mom, she's the one who's in charge of the vineyard. And the industry and the business part are very wrapped in there, which tells us that women had more authority than just in the kitchen. They really could and would and did do more. So putting all of that together, these three women, the two named ones and this metaphorical, allegorical woman, leads me to say that my faith, the Jewish faith, has always taught that women have inherent value and external. I mean, not just in the family. They can influence their husbands, they can influence society, they can influence business, and that we can internalize these strengths. We can teach them, not just to our daughters, we teach them to our sons, to respect what they see in women, to respect what they see in other people, because this is universal. These are all traits we should all aspire to. They're traits we should all adopt and use. Rhetoric to solve a problem. True faith and belief in oneself to challenge the authority. Ability in business, we have it. It's always been there. And if it's not, society will change. It has changed, it will continue to change. Our roles and our places in society are always up for change. What isn't is the strength of character. And if we use our talents and our skills, we can accomplish goals that are far-reaching and have high impact. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And before I will give this microphone to give you opportunity to ask questions, I want to say just a few words because time is running. First of all, when we speak about peace, there are different types of peace. There is negative peace and positive peace. Negative peace, it's absence of violence, it's absence of open fight, open harm to people, but also there are positive peace. And what is positive peace? It's absence of what we call structural violence. Absence of situation where people do not really build their success by discriminating others. It's situation where people do not create patterns of exclusion and inclusion, do not create boundaries between each other, but situations where people actually positively engaged with each other. And what our discussion is today is not about negative peace, it's not about preventing violence. Our discussion today is about building positive peace. And one of the theme which I heard today again and again, it's about empowerment and about providing spaces where people can come together and discuss issues. And empowerment for women is extremely important because if you do not have your own self-esteem, the only way how to feel good about yourself is to compare yourself to others, right? And put down others, what we call favorable comparison. Feel, oh, I'm better than this particular person. Oh, look at these people, look at this, what they wear, and look how they look, right? But if you have your self-esteem, if you're empowered in what you are doing, you don't need it. You really become more positive toward everyone else. So with my first question, and then I will give for all three of you, you speak again a lot about providing spaces, how we come together to resolve common interests. Can you provide just one quick example of where you think, from your own experience, or what you think is very important, where women were empowered through this providing of new space for dialogue?
You know, I used to be very interested in words. Now I'm much more interested in action. I became a very, very action-oriented person. Words are good, and I'm a professor of communication, so I can go on to talk forever. And talk is good, but in many cases talk is cheap. What we really need to do is take all our good talk and turn it into good actions. I remember one time I was giving a talk in a church, and there was a woman who works in the soup kitchen in the church, and she was talking about how she's providing services to the poor and so on and so forth. And it was my turn to talk, so I took the microphone and I talked, which is something I know how to do. And after I finished, she said, I cannot talk like you talk much better than me. I said to her, but you are doing much more important work than me. What you are doing in this soup kitchen is much more important than any lecture I can possibly give. So as I grow older, I don't know about all of you, but as I grow older, I am becoming more and more interested in turning good words into good actions and good deeds. And there are good examples out there, like I mentioned earlier, good people going out there and turning their good intentions and good words into good actions. We just need to connect the dots. We need to get our minds and hearts, our souls together to see how we can make it happen. One good example, for example, is work to help the Syrian refugees. We all know that there's a big, huge humanitarian crisis, and Maryland finally received some Syrian refugees, not as many as we should, but we did receive some. And we started to have some, during the holy month of Ramadan, iftars, breaking the fast dinners, and invite some of them to come over and to attend the iftar with us. And there was interfaith welcoming dinners for them. Churches, mosques, synagogues, temples opened the doors and opened their hearts for them and said, it's not just your Muslim sisters and brothers who are welcoming you, but you should also know that you have Christian brothers and sisters, Jewish brothers and sisters from all faith and denominations who are also welcoming you and saying, we're here for you. If you need us, we are here for you. And that's big. When you think about it, that's big, that's huge. To me, that is what faith is all about. Faith is not just about our rituals. Rituals are good, but we have to take it and translate it into good actions together.
So I very much, of course I agree with that. In my life, and in terms of finding spaces to have these discussions and opportunities, I don't have a job I go to. I work out of my house. I do meet people and I speak with them on the phone, but that's a much secondary thing. But I talk to a lot of people one-on-one or in small groups. And I've said before, I feel very powerless to speak my mind and have anyone hear it. I go to synagogue, I hear the sermons, and I always feel that the good people that I know are talking to the good people that they know. And everybody who agrees together is talking to everyone who agrees together. And I realized that is true. And it's true in life, it's true more so than ever on the internet, where you can speak and someone doesn't want to hear you, they will click away, or you can click away when they give you a comment that you don't like. We have echo chambers. What we forget we have is day-to-day interaction. And I'm not saying go out and meet a stranger and jump into a rough conversation. No, I'm saying go out and tell people, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, how are you, how was your day, are you okay? 30 seconds of conversation. It doesn't have to be on anything deep, but make the human connections. That's where we're gonna make the spaces to eventually grow these conversations, is in not assuming that person, but they don't want to talk to me. They might not. My kids get on me all the time. Mommy, you talk to strangers. You talk to everybody. Yeah, I do. I like talking to people. I find everybody interesting. There's something of value in every conversation. Is it for everyone? No, some people really are not good at that. But it's something to keep in mind, that we have more opportunities to talk to people, to build those bridges, or at least, if not the whole bridge, you've put a stone in place, you've put a support there. Someone else will come behind and do more. It's a joint effort, and seek out the impactful places and do what you can. But don't assume that because you can't find them or you're not there that you can't make this work happen.
I really don't have anything to add because you covered words and action. If I had to add one thing, I guess, it's also important to create that space in yourselves, internally. If you don't have that confidence, that faith, that belief that you make a difference in the world, whatever capacity, whatever context that you are in, then it will be difficult for you to go reach out and speak with a stranger. It will be difficult for you to take that action, that step towards action, perhaps. So allowing sacred space within yourself, and it's hard as women. We wear many hats. We have many responsibilities, and sometimes there's no time to carve out a slice of a day. But it's very important to spend some time reflecting upon these values so that you are in a good place, and that what Karina talked about, we compare ourselves and, oh, I'm better than you. That comes out of insecurity, and that comes out of anxiety about not being good enough. But know that you are good enough. Whatever divine being that you believe in has created you to be perfect, lovable, beloved, precious being. So create some sacred space for yourselves.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll open space for questions. We have 15 minutes. So please ask your questions and introduce yourself, and we're open for questions. I'm sure there are a lot of questions.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let me just.
Thank you very much. Very, very good opportunity to listen to all three of you. My question is for you. Both of them gave a religious example about faith and how they are interpreting faith and learning from it, but we didn't hear any religious example from you relating it to tolerance and peace. So I would be interested to, because there was a very clear connection you made to Jewish, and you also made this. So I would be interested in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a very good
And
question.
my second question is that why it has become more and more difficult. You know, why we need so much effort to bring now to bring peace, why it has deteriorated at this stage of history or this time. Why?
And this
Why
probably a question for everyone, right? The
Everyone.
second.
Second
Yes,
one, yeah.
because
Yeah.
why? And
Yes.
because it is terrible now.
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Because people, micro and then macro. So coming from very remote area, and there was peace 30, 40 years back from where I come. We would live with among Shias and Sunnis and Sikhs and Hindus and Christians, and this is something terrible.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. These are very important and good questions. Thank you so much. I think you're right. Bless you. You're right. I did not maybe link this to my Muslim faith. I assume that most of the audience are aware of Muslim faith, but I think that are also non-Muslim audience. And thank you so much for coming and showing up. I think that my relationship with religion started at a very young age. I'm not going to tell you my life story. I'll just tell you very briefly that religion was in the air, but never in any oppressive or suppressing way. My grandfather was a Sufi sheikh. So for those of you who know Sufism, it's like the Hasidic tradition. It is about mysticism. It's about self-reflection. Reflecting inside yourself, like you said. If you cannot fill your own cup, you cannot give others. You cannot give from an empty cup, and you cannot give from a dirty cup. So you have to give from a full cup. And thankfully, I'm so thankful to God that my cup was full of love and a lot of care and compassion. And religion came very naturally, in a very natural way. I did not grow in a home where my mom wore the hijab. My mom never put on the scarf until a very late stage in her life. But we, the daughters, there are 4 daughters in the home, every one of us had her own journey with her own faith as a Muslim woman. So you have 5 different Muslim women living in the same household. Everyone has a different journey and a different connection to her own faith. And I think that's the way it should be. We cannot have a one-size-fits-all. Everyone has to come up to some kind of journey. It's your journey. It's your relationship with God, with Allah, with the divine. And it has to be unique and it has to be individual. And that's how my connection to my own faith grew. I grew in my own household naturally as part of this Sufi mystical tradition that I came to love and to admire so much. And it became like really a fuel for me, or something that gives me energy and gives me a lot of momentum and enthusiasm to go out and do something positive in the world, which I think what religion is all about and what Islam is all about. We have a hadith of the Prophet, saying of the Prophet, peace be upon him, just 2 words. 2 words only. Al-Deen, Al-Mu'amala. Religion is good dealings. Religion is about good dealings. If you just take these 2 words and apply them, the world is going to be a much, much better place. It's not about just what you believe in, but also what you do. How you deal with other people, how you interact with other people. That is the true essence of your faith and your religion, and this is how I understand Islam and try to apply it in my own life and apply it as a way to also reach out to others and do as much good as I possibly can in the world. The second part of your question quickly about why we got to this point. There were 3 waves of Islamophobia in this country. One that came after the Iran hostage crisis, one that came after the horrific, tragic incident of 9/11, and one that came after the latest attacks in San Bernardino, California, and Orlando, and the attacks in Paris and so on. The last one has been the most vicious one, the most dangerous one. Why? Because, unfortunately, Islamophobia and hate speech and so on became amplified through the media and through social media as well. So if somebody has a negative tweet, it's going to be retweeted and retweeted and retweeted, and before you know it, it's going to be amplified, the voice is going to become too loud, and it's going to become a very wide circle. But hey, here's the good news. The good news is you can use these very same tools to counter hatred and to counter violence and to counter extremism and to counter Islamophobia and all forms of discrimination. We can use the very same tools to counter these negative messages and to spread alternative messages, counter messages of love and compassion and mercy and coexistence.
So to address your second question, I agree that social media has a lot to do with the way we communicate and spread messages of both hatred and acceptance and compassion and love. Another part of that is that we are becoming more and more globalized world. Because of our help of the media, but being able to travel all over, we become more and more less homogeneous group and more, mixed group of people living. In America alone, especially in Northern Virginia, DC, Maryland area, I believe 55% are non-whites. So majority are non-whites now.
Majority minority.
Majority minority. So there is a tremendous shift in the power dynamics in this country. So I can't speak for other countries, but in this country, there's a lot of fear among those who have traditionally held power, and that power is being challenged. It started, with civil rights movement 60 years ago, and now it's shifting more and more. So structuralized and systematic racism of this country has a lot to do with that. And there's a lot more, but that's where I'm just going to stop and hand over the mic.
So very briefly to the why now, why is it so bad? You're not gonna like this. It's not. It's always been this bad. It's just when and where we are when we see it. What globalization has allowed us to see is in much greater detail and in a much broader scope what's going on everywhere.
And how we perceive it.
And of course how we're receiving that. For every place, receive and perceive, I heard. For every place that was peaceful 30 years ago, although the question there was it positive peace or negative peace, you can examine that in some detail. There may have been another place that wasn't, and now maybe that other place is peaceful, and it isn't. That isn't to say that we are not charged as individuals and as society to make it better, to fix it. There's no need for that cycle to continue to repeat time and time and time again. Those same forces that allow us to see it all and feel it all and heighten it should be the same ones that we can use, the same tools to help fix it.
Thank you very much. You have a question?
It's not a question, actually.
Okay.
My name is Leila Dane. I was born in America and have lived in many parts of the world and worked in many more. I'm listening to myself review when I was in Algeria at the height of their terrorist activity. The Algerians had asked me to come help them cope with their way of being psychotherapists to those who were so traumatized in the villages surrounding Algiers. And they said, what can we do when we've tried everything we've learned how to do, and there's still so much more we need to do? And I said, I would recommend that you stand in a circle and hold each other and come in tight on each other and feel what strength you have, and you see yourself as your nation's greatest value. And from there you learn to tell what hurt most as you dealt with the people who needed you. And that will kind of wake up the incoming person to be able to address that. And then as you go away, you will be able to give strength to the next person. And they were very grateful for that. They were very grateful. I had no idea what response I was going to get from them because I was winging it. But it's, if we can keep winging it and always make space for the love of God, whatever. I mean, whatever our religion is or whatever our philosophy is, I call myself an Episcopal Buddhist, but nevertheless, there's room there for us all to bring together and hold together and know that we can find a way forward. Thank you for letting me be here.
I will take it as a question for you. What similar experiences you have in your own lifetime when you saw that something which you proposed in peace building really worked? Do you want to share anything?
I had one very positive experience. Myself and a colleague from the College of Education at the University of Maryland, we put together a workshop to build leadership skills for Jewish and Muslim women. That's very relevant to the topic of this panel actually this evening, because they're women and they're also from different faith traditions and working together for peace building and peace education. Our vision was that women, as I said in my talk earlier, are very, very important in connecting the dots and nurturing and caring and giving momentum not just to their families but also to the communities. And the vacuum of not having women in leadership positions really contributes to a lot of deterioration that we are seeing in the world in terms of hostility and violence and crime rate and Islamophobia and anti-Semitism and hatred of all sorts and forms, because a big part of it, in my opinion, is because women are not given the opportunity to really be where they belong, to be decision makers, to be on the table, to be leaders in their own communities, to step up and to show the power that they have inside them, not just in terms of being nurtured for their family, but also to the wider circles of community and society as a whole. So that's why we put together this workshop. It was a very successful event, and we actually were able to get a group of very intelligent young Muslim and Jewish young women who were very open about their differences, similarities, commonalities, points of agreement, points of disagreement, and that's something important I want to share. Just because we decide to sit together in the same space and to share and to be open does not mean that we have to necessarily see everything eye to eye. It is okay to disagree. What is not okay is for us to kill each other because we are disagreeing, or to hate each other because we are disagreeing, or to leave the room as enemies just because we have disagreement. It is perfectly okay to disagree. We just need to know how to do it. And that's a very important point. In one of the interfaith events I was in, we were talking about our similarities and differences. How are we similar, but also how are we different? And we can learn from both. We learn from the things we have in common and the shared things we have in common, and there is so much in common across different faith traditions. But guess what? We also have points of difference. We sometimes have points of distinction or points of disagreement. We should not shy away from these disagreements. We should learn how to benefit from them and how to really kind of make the best out of them as well. So that was a very eye-opening experience, and out of this we were able to publish a chapter and most importantly come up with this group of women who are very enthusiastic and very interested and invested in interfaith dialogue. Just one last point, I'm very excited about seeing women in the clergy. Whenever I see women who are ministers or rabbis or priests or reverends, or now Muslim chaplains are starting to be the case also in some mosques, I am very excited. Why am I very excited? Because that fills a very important void, a very important vacuum. When you invite women, or women invite themselves, to be more accurate, because we said they have to do it themselves and don't wait for others to give them all of these benefits on a golden or silver plate, it's not going to happen. When women are invited to the table and they come to the table and they are actually stepping up in important key positions and they become priests and ministers and rabbis and chaplains, they fill a very important void. They bring a women's perspective to the table, a different reading and a different interpretation for texts that have been for centuries only interpreted from a patriarchal male perspective. Let's face it. interpreted from a patriarchal, male-dominated perspective. Bring the woman to the table, she's going to give you a different perspective, an empowering perspective that's really useful for everybody, men and women alike.
Thank you, but unfortunately we need to conclude. If you want to say like very
One last
few
question.
remarks.
I'm sorry, may I, before we conclude, I've been trying for a while.
Okay, let me see if we have time, right? We have time?
Yes. I'll be fast. I first want to thank Rumi Forum. It is an amazing occasion when we have two academics, a person of faith, a woman pastor, and somebody representing the non-profit sector. It doesn't happen every day, so it's great. And I just want to ask your opinion, and would be very happy if everybody contributes, about something that is currently ongoing, and it's possibly the biggest thing in the news today, and this is the situation in Aleppo. Yesterday I caught myself remembering that 20 years ago, during the Bosnian crisis, the situation in Yugoslavia, I was thinking, what can I do in terms of peace? You're a student, you're somewhere at the other part of the world, there is a negative peace situation, means that absolutely this is missing. You know that thousands of people will die in the next week, or possibly even, tens of thousands in the next month. And that everybody thinks I cannot do anything about it. Well, it so happens that we are here and we are talking about peace, and we are talking about what can we do. And I think that there is no more urgent question of the question, can any of us here think of what we can do in terms of writing, talking and addressing our congregation, telling our students, discussing with our students, doing non-profit work, but be as concrete as we can be in this very short period of time, yes, of saving possibly thousands or at least, hundreds of people with our action. Possibly there is nothing there, but at least we can quickly brainstorm if there is.
Okay, thank you very much. Very important question. Do you have any thoughts with him?
That is a very important question, and you could frame that one again throughout history, time and time again. And what can individuals do and what can societies do in a democracy? We can make our voices heard. It's hard because we feel in this country it's one in hundreds of million. You're like, who's gonna listen to me? But we also have organizing, there's grassroots organizing, there are ways of putting together, and there's, in a short term, between now and next week, if someone has an idea, that would be great. I don't. In the long term, it's to not let our voices, if this is an issue and it matters. I remember when Governor Hogan in Maryland said that he wouldn't allow any Syrian refugees in, and I immediately sat down and I wrote a letter to the governor saying, you're wrong. I have no idea if he read it. I had to write it, and I had to write right then and send it off. And at least I felt I have a voice. It's a small voice, but it's in somebody's letter pile somewhere that someone cared enough to write about it. This is how, it's small steps, but again, if we all build them together, they'll grow. And it's not about me, but I did want to point out, I am a rabbi, I am clergy as well as nonprofit, so it's all good.
I was gonna say that same thing. We write, we do what we can. We face these kinds of atrocities and horrific world incidents before, and what we need to do, I know this sounds so feeble, but we need to pray. We do not let hope die. We do not let these people take away our hope. That's what we do. And we do that by writing, we do that by calling our congressmen and women and people in power, but just we need to come together and pray.
Very quickly, yeah. The power of collective prayer is very important. Thank you for bringing this up. There's also what I like to call the golden triangle. And the golden triangle, in my opinion, has three important dimensions. Grassroots mobilization. I believe that change should come from the bottom up, not from top down. Right? I don't have a lot of faith or trust in many governments, because governments will always look after their own strategic interest. Let's face it, let's be very blunt, very outspoken about it. Grassroots activism, grassroots peace, and grassroots interfaith work and peace building is the way to go. It has to be grassroots from the bottom up. This is one dimension. The second dimension is youth activism. Youth are the future. They're technologically savvy and capable, energetic, they have ideas, they're very creative. The sky is the limit, right? We have to invest in youth, they're the future. And then the third component is social media and new media, right? Any message now can go viral. You can have your own broadcasting station from your own living room. You don't need to have millions of dollars to open a television station anymore. You can start your own program. I have my own program on an online radio station. I do it once a month. I try to, give platforms for different voices, for people like you who have an interest in this kind of work. I give you a platform. Maybe it's not a huge, Barbara, Walters kind of show, but it is a small step, like you said, a small step in the right direction. So this golden triangle of, peace activism through grassroots mobilization, investing in youth, and using social media and new media, in my opinion, that's the way to go.
Okay, unfortunately, sorry, we have to finish, but you will have opportunity to speak with them after. We really have to finish. So I want to say thank you very much again for our three presenters, for people who are sitting here today, and for Rumi Forum, because they really provide space for such conversations and ideas of Fethullah Gulen, who I wrote a lot about. He really promotes the idea of dialogue, of peace, of acceptance of differences, and I think this is what the major conclusion. And the question speaking, we really have to change, like Gulen doing, like this wonderful three women doing, like I'm doing in my work. Change a classroom, change a person, one person at a time, and change will happen.
That's right.